Thank you so much for joining us today on this webinar. We've already been through the first webinar this morning, and I hope you truly enjoyed and learned about the different presentations that we had from the different speakers this morning. And before we start with this webinar, I would like to say thank you to the Mexico Now platform and team. Let's get started with this panel. Before I introduce the speakers that are going to be joining us today, I would like to share that obviously COVID-19 brought like a coin, that there's a flip side of everything. There's an A side, a B side. And on the one hand, obviously, we're seeing a lot of operations decreasing production. We're seeing a lot of restrictions right now because of traveling. We're seeing a lot of restrictions in logistics. And obviously, the supply chain has been disrupted. So we can see this part of like a negative impact to the aerospace industry. But then the flip side, the other side of the equation, we are seeing right now different companies take their operations from China and relocating different value chains. And this is a great opportunity for companies in Mexico or for foreign companies trying to do business in Mexico. So I would definitely encourage you to try to learn what are the opportunities on the one hand. Number two, what are the conditions? What are the rules of engagement to get connected with the different buyers? And what is it that they're expecting? Because obviously, just as a brief introduction, we've been running the supply chain development program for 4 years now. And at the beginning, I could say that we used to connect buyers and suppliers just one with the other as they were being requested. And something that we learned is that the readiness level of each company, whether it goes on the regulation side, certification, financial, commercial, and technical readiness, we ought to be ready. And there's lots of times in which suppliers are not ready. And part of what we're going to be covering today is one of the angles of readiness. I can say right now that there's a lot of buyers that have been contacting our program and saying, show me the database that you have of suppliers all over Mexico, or of the different technologies that are outside of Mexico willing to serve the industry in Mexico. And right now, we've been sharing this database, and obviously they've been asking for more information. Key points like, what are the capabilities that this supplier have? Like, for example, on the metal side, which is very important, machining, sheet metal, forgings, castings. Those are a great share of what these buyers are asking us. But they're not only asking for the maturity of these companies alone, but also for the vertical integration of secondary processing that they have, or if they're working with someone as a team regionally. One of the problems we've been facing in the past is we have 5 states in Mexico that are very aerospace oriented. We can name them like in the northern part of Mexico, we can say it's Baja California, Sonora, Chihuahua, Nuevo León, and in central Mexico, Querétaro. I can say that there's no one cluster more important than the other. It's different value chains. It's even different sectors of the aerospace industry and the aerospace sector. And it's commercial, civil, or business aviation, military. And depending on the region where you are, it's going to be even different applications. If we talk about interiors, if we talk about engines or aerostructures, it's going to be different regions. So we need to understand, number one, the composition of the clusters that we have throughout Mexico, the different buyers that are present in those regions, but also the composition of secondary processing that are going to be able to allow us to gain those contracts. Just to give an example, right now, we've been talking to different buyers that are relocating value chains from Asia. And the main question that they have is, so tell me, who are they working with as far as heat treatment, as far as chemical processing or finishing? Who is doing the anodizing for them? What certifications and approvals do they have? What dimensions do they have? And that's one of the main topics we're going to be discussing today. And since these buyers are asking for this type of information, if you happen to be on the metal side and you want to be joining these value chains in Mexico for the different buyers, I think you ought to learn what the value proposition from the secondary processing suppliers in different regions we have. And in order to get started with this, I can tell the audience we're going to fragment this panel in two different parts, I'm going to say. Part number one, we're going to meet the different panelists and their operations that they have, the value proposition that they can bring on the table. And then part number two, we're going to listen to the best practices and recommendations that they give suppliers if they want to pursue metal projects with tier one buyers. What is the level of integration that you should be offering for these buyers? So after finishing part two, if you have any questions, you can start planning them on the chat panel and or the Q&A panel, and we're going to try to answer them towards the end if there's enough time for this. So in order to get started, once again, just to reframe, the challenge we're facing to connect metal suppliers with tier one buyers or even OEMs is the level of integration with secondary processing. And in those regards, I would like to first welcome Rene Espinosa, who has been a friend for a long time. He's been playing different positions, obviously with the company that he represents, that he will introduce right now. He's been offering a very strong value proposition that can help us not only in Chihuahua, where he's based out of, but in different regions in Mexico. And he's well aware of the challenges that we've been facing in the industry since he's been representing as president of the cluster of Chihuahua, the aerospace cluster in Chihuahua, and more closely now working as the, as I'm going to say my boss in the supply chain development strategy that we have from FEMIA. So Rene, I would like to welcome you, and please, I would like to have a presentation of the value proposition that metal finishing company could offer to all the metal suppliers that want to join the different purchasing pools that we have throughout Mexico. So Rene, thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Javier. Thank you to Mexico Now and the sponsors. And as Javier said, this is a very important topic that in the last years we've been able to develop. And I would like, of course, to introduce the company I work for and direct Metal Finishing. Metal Finishing is a company based out of Wichita, Kansas. And it's a company that has been working in the industry since 1940. Since the very beginning and the very root of what Boeing was doing back in the 40s during the Pacific War, Metal Finishing started refurbishing the parts for war. Close to 80 years now, we opened a facility in 2011 here in Chihuahua, Mexico. And since then, we've been operating with different certifications and different approvals along with the maturity of the supply chain. I'm going to share to you guys my screen here. So basically, Metal Finishing is a company that is, as I said, we started in 2011. Right now, we have 120,000 square feet of operation. In the beginning, we started with 60,000 square feet. And the main focus back then in 2011 was a scope for aluminum processing. This is important to mention because we found the importance of this missing link in the supply chain, and the way we've evolved is according to the needs of that we've seen and detected as the supply chain in Mexico evolves, talking with the OEMs, talking with the tier ones, of course, talking to the sub tiers like machine shops, sheet metal, and sub-assemblies. Along with this, this is how we've been working. And right now, one of the main scopes, as I said, I'm going to show you here. is the aluminum processing, basically on non-destructive testing, anodizing, chem film, chromic conversion, conductive, non-conductive, trivalent, different sorts of primer applications, fuel tanks, top coats. So this has been the main core, and I'm going to show you very quick along here. This is basically our new scope, trying and understanding the needs of the supply chain, how we've been evolving. And the main purpose right now is to expand by the end of this year, these other 60 square feet to put and focus on the development of steel processing, which comes from a non-destructive testing on magnetic particle inspection, passivate, cadmium, zinc nickel, dry film lube, shot ping, and ultrasonic inspection. One of the advantages that metal finishing brings to Mexico is that we're considered the largest process shop, privately owned, with processing, non-destructive, and heat treat in North America. We also hold more Boeing process approvals than any other process shop worldwide. And one of the things, as I repeat, that has allowed us to adapt to the needs of the supply chain and grow is we're very flexible, and it really doesn't take so much to understand the needs of our customers and move that investment. One of the proofs of that is that big investment we're doing this year to finalize in order to bring that steel processing capability. So this is just a very brief, quick intro. So thank you, Javier.
Thanks to you, Rene, and I assume, not only assume, I mean, we've been together working with different suppliers, and I would say that one of the main challenges is knowing who is doing what and where, with what type of processing, approvals, certifications, and so on. So it's very important, I would say, for all of you who are in the metal industry, sheet metal, machining, it'd be very important for you to try to connect with companies like the one Rene just presented with metal finishing, to use it as an extension. We just made an exercise in one region, which actually we've repeated. We started first experiment, I'm going to call it, back in 2016, where we got together with 8 companies. And it was trying to put together the key players, raw materials, machining, sheet metal, heat treatment, anodizing, special processing, secondary processing. And we were trying to integrate the capabilities of all of these companies together so that we could knock on the door of the buyers of OEMs and Tier 1. Response was very interesting, because there was one buyer that said, I didn't know that you guys could work as a team, number one, and number two, I didn't know that those capabilities existed in this region. So once again, for us, it's very important. If you are in the metal industry and you want to knock on the door of a buyer of a Tier 1, whether it is aerostructures, whether it is engines, whether it is landing gear, what you ought to do is try to know who is where of secondary processing, so that you can connect those capabilities as your extension and offer it as part of it, as part of a team. So that it's very important that we know who has what, where, what approvals they have, and so on. And one of the other secondary processing that we require plenty of times is heat treatment. And obviously, when we talk about heat treatment, especially for exotic alloys, sometimes they're going to be requiring a specific type of heat treatment. And there's sometimes a bias that just as what Rene presented on the heat treatment side, we can sometimes think that these companies do not even exist in Mexico, or that we don't have the capabilities. And it's very interesting how when we talk to buyers, it's interesting that they send a part to be treated on the US side, and then it has to come back, and logistics is killing the equation. So knowing who has what where is one of the most important parts. And for this reason, I would like to bring Aldo Rodriguez, who happens to be on the heat treatment side, and he's representing a very important company that could be a game changer for you as a metal player. If you want to use heat treatment, sometimes you would be thinking that you would need to send it over to the US, and I would disagree. Aldo, I would like to welcome you and to share not only the capabilities that you have in Polo, but also the value proposition that you can put on board for all these metal guys. How is it that we can work with you? So Aldo, welcome, and I would like to start seeing your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Javier, and thank you, Mexico Now staff, for the opportunity. This is a great privilege to be here and share a little bit of our first-hand experience and lessons learned in this heat treating and special processing capabilities. I want to start by giving a brief overview of my presentation. It's very brief because we want to keep it simple so we can ask for more questions at the end. I put a topic here: solving the weak link in the aerospace supply chain. If you move to the next one, Juan, please. We call it a weak link because heat treating is so important. It's critical. We will see a few more examples ahead. It's so important that virtually no manufacturing process is complete without heat treating. So at any point of the manufacturing process, you will find heat treating. Too many times not recognized or not taken in consideration when the transitions happen. That is why it's so important to speak about this. So I'm going to talk about Paulo, the company. Paulo, it's been in business for 76 years now. It's a US company founded in 1947. Altogether, we have 6 plants, more than 600,000 square feet of total productive area. Our headcount is approximately 500 team members. I should note that a big proportion of these team members are scientists and engineers with deep knowledge of metallurgy and material science. It's very important. As I said, 76 years in business, 4th generation, very successful. Almost 1,500 active customers. So we count customers by the thousands, really. And we have huge volume customers and small, more sporadic customers, but we treat them equally, importantly. 200,000 work orders processed by year. And we can boil down everything to one goal, which is help our customers succeed, because we are part of their supply chain. If you take the next slide, please, Juan. A quick overview of just a small sample of the customers that we help succeed, and we call them business partners. So that concept goes far beyond of the typical concept of customer, because we really consider ourselves their allies or partners. Our customers are high-performance integrators in the automotive, aerospace, industrial equipment, tooling, energy, oil and gas industries, and more. We also serve Tier 1 suppliers and OEMs. As you can see, we are very well positioned to supply our services to integrators in the highest level of the chain, or Tier 1s, Tier 2s, or even Tier 3s. It depends on where we are in the manufacturing sequence. Next slide, please. Let me also put these definitions forward for many of the audience. I see a couple of hundred participants here in this presentation. For many of you, this is not new, but it's worth repeating what is heat treating. As you can see here, practically nothing can be manufactured without heat treating. This is a process in which the metal is heated and cooled under tight controls to improve its properties, performance, and durability. It's a very short statement. It looks simple, but it is very complex, and it requires a lot of science to do it right, and Paulo does it right. Heat treating can soften the metal or improve formability. It could make parts harder, give them more strength. We can even put a hard surface on a relatively soft core. We could increase abrasion resistance. We can create corrosion-resistant skins to protect parts that otherwise will corrode. And we can make products tougher as needed by engineering. So it's a combination of heat, cool down rates, heat up rates, time, temperature, atmospheres. It's a big cocktail of parameters and variables. What is the value of the heat treating industry? Some sources say heat treating adds up to $15 billion per year in value in products all across the board. As I said, any industry, automotive, furniture, defense, electronics, tooling, oil and gas. One interesting fact about heat treating is a very across the board process, because it touches every industry at any stage of the manufacturing process. So this is how important heat treating is. Next slide, please. I'm going to speak very briefly about the Monterrey capabilities. As I said, Paulo has been in business for 76 years now. And we proudly can say that the Monterrey plant is the newest, the most recent addition to the family. We have been in operation for almost 3 years. Actually, this month of October marks the 2nd anniversary of the plant. The ribbon cutting ceremony took place only 2 years ago. And we can say that in this short period, we are operating 24/7 without interruption. It's been 2 years straight operating 24/7 and moving a lot of material. We are moving several hundred of tons per week of material for different customers. I'm going to focus right now on one specific piece of equipment that is very relevant for the aerospace industry's vacuum furnace. This is a newly acquired and commissioned furnace that we have in the plant. So we can offer processes like stress relief, precipitation hardening, vacuum bracing, tempering, demagnetizing. This type of furnace is mostly used for superalloys or high carbon, high alloy steels, where we need heat treating in a very specific vacuum environment. Therefore, there's no oxidation or a significant change in color or scaling on the part. So it's very important. Hopefully, many of you in the audience are interested. If you are, please reach out. We can start talking about opportunities for your needs. Next, please. This is a very, 50,000 feet level view of what we do in every plant. We have Cleveland, Ohio, first column, Kansas City, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Monterrey, Nashville, and St. Louis, Missouri. And in the lines, horizontal lines, we have the specific heat treating family. Earlier, I spoke about heat treating, and as I said, it's basically heating and cooling with parameters, but there are many specific processes. It depends on your alloy, your size, your thickness, and the desired effect, whether you want to strengthen or soften or harden the material. So I'm gonna distribute this presentation later on so you can read and get more specific information. But we proudly can say Paulo has every heat treating that you may imagine for small, large, size, continuous processes or batch processes, we have them all. Next, please. Well, I'm gonna end it here. Really, if you want to learn more about Paulo, you will definitely go to our website. We have lots of materials, white papers. We have a lot of scientific information there, case studies that you can research, videos, and so on. And I invite the audience to click and go to that link. If you can do it now, or we can distribute it in a few minutes, to finish up our survey. We are conducting a nationwide survey and detection of necessities or needs. And we have hundreds of responses so far, and we aim to really explore all Mexico, all industries, and make sure the next process we bring to Monterrey is the one that is most needed for solving your needs. Thank you, Javier.
Thanks a lot, Aldo, for this great presentation. Once again, I was just saying that it's very important that we know who has what where, with what approvals, what certifications, what even dimensions. Because when we talk about heat treatment, sometimes I mean, if we're in the metal side, sometimes we don't even differentiate from different types of ovens and even the different types of services that you can offer. So the fact that you, as well as Renee, show us the capabilities that you have on site and the other arms that you have even outside of Mexico that you can help us and put on board, those are of great assistance. And I think once again, for all the metal companies that are trying to look for companies, we've seen plenty of contracts or plenty of RFQs that have been declined because they say, I don't have the enough integration and I don't have an oven. And I'm not going to invest in an oven. So you have companies like Polo where you can contact Aldo and start using them as part of your integration to quote for these projects. So thank you, Renee. Thank you, Aldo, for sharing those capabilities that you have as value proposition for the metal industry in the aerospace industry. And I would like now to go for a presentation, actually a video from one of our sponsors, and we'll get back for the second part of this panel.
Are you looking to expand your manufacturing business globally while improving your bottom line? Mexico is your answer. Intermex, your partner. Intermex is one of Mexico's most important manufacturing management support and industrial real estate providers. Our customer portfolio of more than 200 international manufacturing firms benefit from effective establishment, operation, and continued success. Additionally, we present our clients with the opportunity to further reduce costs and optimize operation performance by utilizing different management strategies such as shelter, startup, Mexican entity management, specialized services, and our multi-tenant and shared facility option. If Mexico is your choice of destination, Intermex will provide you with highly competitive advantages for the support and experience that can enable your venture to succeed. Think Mexico. Think Intermex.
Let's continue with the second part, for which I'm gonna make a complex question over here. This would be initially to Renee, and then we'll go with Aldo as well. And this complex question would be, what are the best practices that you would recommend as to what suppliers in the metal side, whether it is machining or sheet metal, that they're trying to quote for a tier 1 buyer? What are the best practices? What is it that they should do and what they should not do when they should approach you and try to quote for this buyers? So let's start with Renee. What's your insight as to what you can share of what they should do and what they shouldn't do?
Thank you, Javier. I think we could spend hours with a lot of experience and stories we've had in the last almost 10 years in trying to develop the supply chain in Mexico. It's very important. One of the biggest recommendations is that as a machine shop or sheet metal fabricator, it's important for you to understand who are those players in the surface treatment and on the heat treatment. It is very common it's very common that the buyer will receive the print. There's a flow down from the tier 1 or the OEM. The information is analyzed. The supplier focus on what if it's in the capabilities for the machining or the sheet metal. And I'm going to focus, probably it's easier just on the machining. They're going to download the print. We can do it. We cannot do it. And then later, they will find on the notes that it needs a specific temper, it needs a specific aging, and then after that, it needs a non-destructive testing, and then it needs a special surface finish or chemical processing with a certified specialized masking, and then a primer, and then another masking, and another top coat. By the time the buyer takes a look at the print and starts trying to figure out where to find that processing, it's too late to present that quoting. The other situation that we face is that the company's experienced, they can read, they already know who has it. But when they're quoting for a specific OEM or a specific program, they need to go to that OEM's or that portal where you can find the certified approved companies that will be providing the heat treatment or the surface finish or the NDT. Because if there's a shop in your area that will say, okay, I can do a specific anodize, I can do black anodize or red anodize, but then you quote, you submit the quotation, and let's say they approve it. But then later it comes to a point that is, oh, are you certified for a specific OEM? No, we're not. Or you start getting those restrictions that the OEM requires in the industry for the suppliers. So it's very important. I think my first advice is, instead of trying to look which parts you can fabricate, start looking at what is the level of integration in your region, in your area, and how are you going to be able to bring the part from your machine shop to the heat treater, to the surface treatment, and then come back. So I think I think that scenario reflects pretty much what we're going through right now.
Thank you, Rene. And obviously, I know that I gave you a complex question, but yeah. It is what it is. And obviously, there's a lot of misconceptions when trying to work and trying to sometimes even interpret just what you said. I mean, you take down the prints, and sometimes the companies don't even understand what it says or how it should be, and they make assumptions. And most of the cases that we've seen is that they decline. And yes, they should not decline. I mean, you have experts that can help you and that can partner up with you. And I think those are very good recommendations. Thanks a lot, Rene. So now I'm going to turn actually the same question to Aldo. And same question would be, what recommendations, what are the best practices that you would recommend for someone who needs heat treatment? How should they use a company like yours or the services that you offer? And what are the shoulds that they should do and they shouldn't do in an approach of quoting their projects before their clients and partner with you?
Thank you, Javier. And I agree with Rene. We can definitely extend many hours of conversation and debate. I'm sure we will have opportunities later, one-on-ones and possibly a follow-up seminar, maybe specific. Let me start by saying many times we've seen, Rene and Javier, I'm sure you agree, we've seen missed opportunities in the past years where there is a very good opportunity for, transfer work or add up forces. In Mexico, we have extremely good manufacturing companies, call it machining, sheet metal fabrication, metal forming, assembly. The capabilities and the maturity and the work ethics and the technology that we have in Mexico, that is really a result of many years of refining from the automotive industry back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Nowadays, the capability for creating those geometries is there. 5-axis machining, very complex, intricate parts. The capability is there. The skill of the labor in Mexico is superb, is equal or if not better than Asia or even parts of Europe. What is the challenge? We need to add these special processes in between. And many times those are not well understood. So my suggestion is for the buyer, for the target company that is bidding on these projects, do research. Don't assume. I mean, the face of the drawing is going to show you how the part looks, and all types of visuals around it, and yeah, but there's small capitals in there, and there is sub layers of information that take you to the difficult part, which is heat treating, chemical processing, so on. So research. If you don't have the skill or somebody that knows enough about translating those specs, you can count on us. And I take the freedom to also extend the comment to Rene and other good friends in the industry. We can help. Javier, you're an expert. Rene and many of us can gladly, sit down and start talking details. We can cover the formalities on non-disclosure agreements as needed, because many times the opportunity is missed because we didn't speak the same language. You have that call out in your spec. Is a very old spec. Maybe that particular process calls out a specific brand name or a trade name of a chemical that doesn't exist anymore. But guess what? Maybe that trade name is under a different company now. There's been 2 acquisitions in 20 years. And it becomes simple when you speak to the right people. So do research. Don't go away with the idea that there's going to be bad competition. I mean, the more we bring to the country, the more everybody wins. I mean, there's synergy. That's the other concept. Synergy is when 2 + 2 = 5. I mean, if we can speak to the manufacturer, to the heat treater, to the chemical processing expert, to the non-destructive testing expert, and so on, and we are in the same table, we can maximize the output. So that's one recommendation. Also, one important thing that I took notes here, don't forget the real hidden cost underneath the surface. I've seen examples where the decision is, okay, don't do this transition because it doesn't worth it. Somebody said, yeah, we found somebody in Mexico that can do the painting or the heat treating, and they do the math, and they take in consideration the travel. The part needs to travel from point A to point B, cross the border 2 times. Maybe the Mexico source is a little bit more expensive than expected. I doubt it, really. But when they do the math, somebody said, no, it's too complex. The differential is too small, so don't change anything. Surprise, there is cost of inventory. Imagine your supply chain like a pipeline, and that pipeline is full of parts. So you need to have enough inventory moving across to make sure you are never late with your customer. So that inventory is somewhere. It's going to be in your heat treater. At the same time, you have some material at the border. Something is in transit. Something is, waiting to be inspected or source inspected and so on. If you take in consideration the financial cost of, working capital, inventory, the equation changes dramatically. And I'm sure you're going to make different decisions. Again, we can help. I don't want to get too technical, really, with specs and so on, but those are my 2 takeaways from this question. Javier.
I think those are great recommendations, Aldo. And just as you were saying, I mean, it's important that you guys do your research. There's I'm going to be mixing the comments and the next question with trying to answer some of the questions in the Q&A panel. And obviously, as I've been saying, it's important to know who's doing what, where, with what dimensions, what certifications, what approvals. The dimensions of the tanks or of the ovens are very important. One of the problems that we have in Mexico, when we see presentations, we say we have more than 400 aerospace certified companies in Mexico between AS 9100 and NADCAP, and yet the problem remains. I mean, I have buyers that say a part number needs to travel, the raw material travels from the US to somewhere in Mexico, it gets pre-machined, and then it needs to be heat treated and it goes back to the US because of ignorance, because they didn't know that there was a heat treater over here in Mexico. And it crosses the border and it costs us the inventory cost that you're saying, but then it has to come back and then it's machined again. And then it needs to be anodized. We had a company from the eastern part of the country, and they were anodizing in Los Angeles, California, and then getting back. So obviously, when I talk to buyers, they say Mexico is not competitive, but one of the angles that happens to not be competitive or to play against us is the logistics, and it's killing the equation. And one of the exercises that we did a few years ago, when we started going in the plant tours and seeing what they were doing and asking what they were doing, the heat treatment or the anodizing, we realized that they were doing it in Canada or somewhere else, and it was getting back. And obviously the key questions were, why are you not doing it here? We were local. And obviously the buyer would say, I didn't know that you had this. And it's interesting how in the aerospace industry, we almost say that we know each other. It's a small club. So usually in the different trade shows and then different cluster meetings, we already know everybody or most of them. However, we don't know the capabilities that they have in their facilities. We don't know the size of the machines, of their ovens, or of the tanks that Rene has. Or I recall a few years ago, there was a buyer that said, find me someone who could machine a part of 177 inches and someone who could anodize it as well. And when we even start communicating among ourselves, what's going to happen is, for example, Rene that had an expansion, he could adjust the size of the tank to fit your needs. But if you don't communicate, there's a huge problem. And the worst thing that could happen is that Rene or Aldo bring an oven or a tank and that it falls, I don't know, 10 inches smaller than the part number that you could process. And you could lose a big business just because of this. And it's lack of communication. So if you want to know who's doing what where, I would encourage you to contact us and Fabia. We could connect you to the different key players in different regions. And if you don't have the right capability, we could try to push for a model that works. And this is bringing the experts, once again, Rene, Aldo, or some other expert that could help us, number one, break down this and the specifications. And number two, thinking on how to solve it. How can we do it? How can we make it happen? Right now, one of the comments that I would like to share, and this is where I'm going to shift the second question, is we're seeing a second wave of potential contracts. Obviously, as I said at the beginning, COVID-19 has hit strongly different value chains. We made a survey in which I would say that more than 250 companies already answered that survey, and 35% of them had a decrease in demand of more than 50%. 40% had a decrease of 30 to 50%. So obviously it was a strong hit. However, just as we speak, obviously commercial aircraft is going to recover, I don't know, perhaps in 24 months, 24 to 30 months. However, there's this wave that is getting back from Asia. And this wave, we could gain business, right? Right now, we're having different conversations with key players like that. So that's one of the questions that we have from the audience that I would like to reverse. How should a metal company leverage on this second wave that is coming back from China, from Asia? How should we get prepared and not lose this second opportunity that we have by partnering with I'm going to say companies like metal finishing company and Polo? Rene, I wonder if you could help us in this question. How do you see this second wave and how should we get prepared?
Something, and I'm going to answer your question, Javier, which is a very important, on-time, crucial question. Something that we are starting to do, and is, first of all, like you said, communication. Get to know what's happening. Get to understand what are the needs. Get to understand who the machine shop is talking to, which OEM, which buyer, which tier one. I'll tell you an example. A company from Monterrey calls me. Are you approved for such and such spec? And I go, I have the process. I'm not approved for that. My first question is, what are the dimensions of your parts? My tanks are 3 meters, almost 50 centimeters length, 2 meters deep. I've run parts of 4 meters. So that's the first, what do you need? So the approach that we're doing right now is talking to my customer. Let's get together. Let's use technology. Let's have a meeting with your customer. So we're starting to have these conversations, mainly focus on that reshoring strategy that they want to bring from Asia. And we've been very successful until this point in these months that, yes, industry was impact 35% average, 40% average. We're starting to quote projects that are going to come back to Mexico, that are going to come back to North America. We're trying to work as regions together. I'm working with companies in Querétaro. I'm working with companies in Sonora, Coahuila, central part of Mexico, state of Mexico, Nuevo León. So we need to understand that the OEM is looking at Mexico as a reshoring strategy, and not so much if I have to ship the parts from Monterrey to Chihuahua. I mean, let's be realistic. I've run parts processed here in Chihuahua that are shipped from Malaysia. And the Malaysian company and metal finishing, we were competitive enough to win that project, even considering logistics, to the Chinese companies or companies in the US for a tier one in Asia. We need to understand, we need to see that we're ready in a region. I've been in Aldo's facility. I know he walked me through his shop, and I understand. And every time a customer calls me, if I don't know it, I know who to contact, or we can start working together. I know that in the near future, Aldo's going to receive a part, he's going to send it to me, and I'm going to send it back to the customer. A lot of companies, especially in Mexico, and I think it's because of automotive, we need to start understanding different. We need to understand and start thinking as aerospace. Those restrictions need to make us start working as a whole territory, not because I'm in Chihuahua, you cannot ship me the parts from Coahuila or from Monterrey. I worked with Aldo in the past when he had the facility in Saltillo, and that's how we met. I mean, that's how we start working in the past. So I think this has been a very successful strategy that as a company we're implementing, and that we are challenging the Mexican suppliers to start thinking out of the box like this way.
Thanks a lot, Rene. I think that those are great insights. And let me turn the question to Aldo. How do you see this second wave that is coming back from Asia, and how should we get prepared for it? How can we partner up and diminish the risk of losing contracts?
That's a great question. Let me say this. Everybody knows the volumes are down, and it's going to take time for the manufacturers for the integrators to build, airplanes at the rate they were building last year. That's a fact in life. It's going to take time. But here's the good news. Remember, this is a low volume, high mix environment. So is going to get lowest volume historically or in our generation. And where's the opportunity for Mexico in the mix? So let me put you an example. Maybe we are going to see less quantity or number of chipsets, we call them in the industry. Yes, granted, but if we can capture higher mix or complete families or complete sub-assemblies, that's our opportunity as a country. It is a huge opportunity. And remember, where is the value added? I mean, the more labor, the more assembly, the more touch labor we have in that final wing or, vertical stabilizer or, assembly for electronic deck or whatever, the more labor there is, the more interesting it gets for Mexico. So heat treating, special processing, in particular, chemical processing or non-destructive testing is the catalyst, is the glue that is going to put everything together. So I know it's difficult to be optimistic really with the volumes that everybody saw last month, press releases and forecasts by the big companies. Yes, but this second wave is happening, it's going to happen. And this is a regional integration effort. So Mexico is ready. If you remember 20 years ago, 15 years ago, aerospace was really in the early stages of development. But right now it's been 20 years. So there's plenty of certifications, there's plenty of capacity, capabilities around. And Mexico is ready to capture more mix and more, I call it higher level assembly levels, to put together not only parts, brackets, or loose parts, rather we should capture assembly, integration, make sure we deliver, in your bill of material, a higher level assembly end product. And the glue and the catalyst or the enabler to accomplish this is going to be these special processing capabilities. So it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's going to happen. Again, back to the original comments, we need to speak, we need to get together, we need to use FEMIA. I'm gonna really recognize the efforts of FEMIA. I consider FEMIA, the Federación Mexicana de la Industria Aeroespacial, it's like a hub. Yes, we have clusters. Chihuahua has a cluster, Nuevo León has a cluster, Bajío, or other places. We have associations that specializes in different processes. But FEMIA is a hub, and there's a huge opportunity there. So let's continue doing this. I mean, this seminar is just one example. Technology is going to, put us in contact faster, simpler, and it's time to work together and connect and make sure we help each other. Many times, Rene, you can attest to this. There's a package coming for my quality department. Well, we cannot do that process. It's a chemical process that is not in our specialty. Hey, Rene, this is for you. And likewise, maybe you get opportunities and you have an opportunity for heat treating is not in your aisle. Okay, we can help. The more we do that, the better. So I encourage the audience, participants in the panel to keep doing this. And Mexico Now, again, thank you for enabling this conversation.
Thank you for those insights, Aldo. And I believe we're going to be running out of time pretty soon. But one important question: there might be a lot of companies that are in other industries and that are trying to pursue or to understand the aerospace industry and how could they join. And key question is, what recommendation would you give someone who is from another industry or who is trying to knock on the door of the key buyers that we have in regards to how should they work with you? And what is it that buyers pay attention to? Like, is it their certifications, their KPIs, what do you see on the side of the buyer that would open the opportunity? And if there was not only this metal company, but also this secondary processing company that wanted to cater the aerospace industry, what recommendations would you give? Rene?
One of the first things I will focus, and I think that's one of the questions that we often get every year. How can a Mexican company with experience in finishings, in coatings, can move into the aerospace industry? And I will go back to what Aldo mentioned earlier. We need to understand the way the industry works. It's a very high mix and a very low volume. And when we understand that, I've been in coatings for metal mechanic. My experience was in automotive. So I know what it feels to get a truck with 200,000 pieces of the same part number. And like Aldo said, an FAI in aerospace could be 5 pieces, one piece. When we understand that, I think that's gonna, and we are willing then to move on. We understand that it's gonna be a very steady industry. The programs are very long-term. Of course, we're going through COVID times. This is very different what we've seen in history. But if we observe this through a timeline, it's been very steady and with a continuous growth. The other thing that the Mexican company or the Mexican processing shop needs to understand is the high demand on the quality control. And by that, I mean NADCAP. What is NADCAP? What is the difference of being NADCAP? What is the difference of AS9100? Because they're totally different things. Both are needed. Both are required. A lot of companies that we've worked, Javier and I, in the past, they approach us and they're like, well, I'm ISO, I have automotive, I have this process. What it takes is need to understand that. Need to understand that for PYME or an SME, a local company, in a success story, it might take about 7 years return investment. And once you understand that, I think you're ready. And if you're willing to do it, you need to understand what are you good at, okay? What is your core process? As I said, Metal Finishing is a company since 1940. We have over 100 processes certified for aerospace for major OEMs worldwide. When we opened the facility, we solely focus on one scope, aluminum, because that's what was gonna take us into the experience that we needed to build to sustain and provide the services on the supply chain. Once we understood that, now after 9 years, close to 10 years, we're gonna move into steel processing, because you need to mature more than what is needed on automotive. I don't wanna diminish the industries. I love all the industries we've done for medical, what I've done in automotive, but in aerospace is different. We need to understand what NADCAP is and what it takes, because that's the other thing. NADCAP certification is gonna be for only one process. It's not gonna be for your facility. It's gonna be for one process. So imagine holding up to 15 NADCAP certifications on different processes. It's a big financial burden. So you need to step or to start like, on baby steps. Let's make it little by little. Let's start in mature and knowing that in the long term, it is possible to do that.
Those are great insights, Rene. Thank you. And I would like to ask the same question to Aldo. We don't have a lot of time, but let's start closing with this question. How should these companies get prepared, especially coming from different sectors? What should they understand, especially when trying to consider heat treatment?
In my experience, I mean, these companies that have been in the automotive or electronics or higher volume environments that are really exploring getting into aerospace, don't get discouraged, because the payback takes longer. But as Rene said, these businesses are typically there for life of program. So there's not going to be like a, every 2 year, 3 year stress of what's going to happen with my contract. Typically, it's longer term. So that's good. It takes time, but my recommendation is think on, back to basics. Think on be more flexible. Those old concepts that we took from school, SMED, single minute exchange of dice, flexibility, small batches. Make sure you have multi-skill in your workforce, and with today's technology, software that you can get, you can be more flexible and be prepared for small batches, because many times the assumption was, oh, I'm going to have a setup, I'm going to make thousands of these parts in a run. No, that's not the case with aerospace. It's going to be different. But after COVID, everything changed. I mean, my estimates, or my vision for the next generation in manufacturing is there's no way around this. There's going to be more flexibility, more adaptation, more multi-skill. There has to be more partnerships and more sharing of capacity. This is a whole big concept. We can talk later about it. But if you have 5,000 hours of lathe or machining center of press or a turret punch in your shop, chances are it's not going to be used maybe 20-30%, because the volumes are low. But think about partnerships. Think about partner with companies that can do a little bit of the process, maybe outside of your factory, but you can partner up, especially with special processes. Of course, leave that to us. Don't burn your cash, don't burn your resources in try to figure it out. So I think the name of the game is partnerships. Javier and Rene, I would like to close with that. If we want to be successful, we need to partner up. There's no lone rangers anymore. There's no, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to keep it for myself. You partner or you die, obviously. And everybody needs to protect their own interests. And there's tools for that. I mean, nobody's saying we are going to steal intellectual property from each other. No, that's not the case, obviously. But we need to partner up. We need to learn how to put the pieces of the puzzle together, connect, speak up, and participate in these initiatives. That would be one of my takeaways.
I think, I couldn't agree more. I'm just going to give you one example to support this. We just had a buyer from Miami, and it was competing a company from Mexico to a company from Colombia and to a company from Taiwan. The pricing for this part number was $19 in Mexico versus $4.5 for the guy from Taiwan. And obviously the buyer said that if we were able to bring the cost down at least to around half, that they would award the contract to the guy in Querétaro because of logistics. It would make more sense to work with Querétaro than it makes sense to work with Taiwan. And the response from the guys in Taiwan was, we'll put a warehouse in Miami, and FOB, it'll be $5.15 per part number. So the gap was very strong. So I spoke to the guys in Taiwan and I asked them, how are you doing it? And he said, the key to this is teamwork. That's what Aldo is saying. He said, we work the whole value chain. All of us are together in less than a 30-kilometer radius. We work as a team. We quote fast. We already know each other. And that's part of the secret if we want to take advantage of the second wave that is coming back. And one of the key advantages that I'm going to say is 53% of the technicians and engineers in the US are 55 years or older. So what we're going to see in this decade is that manufacturing is going to relocate. It has to. Most of these engineers and technicians are going to be retiring in 5 years. It would be a shame that we do not take advantage of those packages that are going to be relocating. And just as Aldo said it in one of his comments, the capabilities are already here. Perhaps we ought to learn how to work as a team, number one. And number two, how to work with different alloys. That's one of the things that we don't have right now. We ought to work as a team to start experimenting, to start welding those part numbers with different alloys. So that there's different things that we need to learn, but you don't have to do it alone. One of the key questions was SMEs, small companies, usually don't have access to financing or to insurance or to different things, even to knowledge, even to certifications. So one of the recommendations that I would give you is, if you're trying to enter the aerospace industry, especially those packages that are relocating from Asia or even from North America to Mexico, raise your hand, get together with us. It would be with Rene, Aldo, or myself. We would be definitely glad to help you. And part of the, I'm going to say, success that we've been having is we already have more than 40 suppliers that we've been able to get contracts for. But that's because in more than 90% of those cases, we've had some sort of an intervention, some sort of a teamwork, some sort of a connection, even with financial companies. So I would say get close to us and get together and let's discuss it. If you need an NDA, let's sign an NDA. Use us, Rene, use Aldo as part of your team. Use our resources. That's part of what we're doing together as a team. So I believe we're out of time. There were some questions that were not answered. I already provided my emails. So if you want to contact us and then through our team, we can get you together with Rene or Aldo or other key players as experts in the market. Aldo, thank you so much for your insights. Rene, thank you so much for your insights. And I hope you have a very good B2B meetings. We're already starting, so I hope you have plenty of meetings, and we'd be glad to help you. Thanks everyone in the audience for joining us today, and I hope you have a great day and a great event and B2B meetings. Thank you. We'll stay in touch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you next time.